In this video, we are going to look at the whole life insurance policy we had prepared for the husband. So for the husband, we looked at one option with one company, or I should say one product with one company, but different funding options. Now, the nice thing about this is when I say options, typically what do you think of? Well, I have to pick either option A, B, C, or D, and I don't want to pick one and then find out later that I should have picked a different one, right? That's a fear everyone has, especially when we approach a product or service that we're looking to purchase and there's a level of uncertainty. So when I say options in this case, we're looking at one product, and these options display what his product will look like if he adds different dollar amounts to the product, which he can adjust as time passes. So he's got a lot of flexibility here, and he is not forced to pick either option A, B, C, or D. He's got the freedom to pivot as the years pass with respect to how much he adds into the policy and how long he funds the policy. So what we're looking at for the husband, we've got Guardian, one of your four major mutual companies, which I'll note has a lot of flexibility. Specifically, what I mean when I say that is what he can do. Bottom line, remember, keep things simple for him. What he can do is commit to a minimum amount, just the minimum premium. What was the dollar amount they wanted to commit to for each policy? $10,000. So with Guardian, he can commit to $10,000 every year. That's the amount he is billed. And then at his discretion, he can just throw more money into PUAs. And there's no limit as to how frequently he can add funds into PUAs. How he can add the money is through his mobile app, online portal, or he can mail in the check. Very, very flexible. Again, can commit to the minimum and add more at discretion. The product we're looking at here is Guardian's L95 policy, which is a great option for strong upfront cash value. And if you do things right from a design perspective and how long you pay into the policy, it can give you strong upfront cash value and also strong long-term cash value. We'll demonstrate that. The funding, how much and how long? He wants to start with a lump sum of $125,000. So they've got $250,000 in cash, but half of that will be directed toward his wife's policy. So the first year, he's got $125,000, a lump sum. And then after that, committing to $10,000 per year. But when I mentioned options a couple of minutes ago, the options we will show is with that same policy where you start off with $125,000 and then commit to $10,000 per year. What does it look like if you pay $50,000 per year? What does it look like if you pay $100,000 per year? Meaning if you add more money on top of that initial $10,000, how much more in cash value do you have as a result? This way you can see the same product with different funding assumptions to know if I pay in more or less money, here's how much more I'll have in cash value, or less for that matter. And you'll see a trend with the death benefit long-term too. So when I say how much, we'll look at different dollar amounts going in and also how long. What we're going to look at here is funding the policy for 10 years, but then also assumptions where we fund it for 20 years. Or what does it look like if he continues to pay that $10,000 premium forever, as he has the option to do that? And again, this is all the same policy where he can fund it and stop after 5 years if he wants. He can stop after 10 years, or he can keep going. So he can pivot as he goes with respect to the dollar amount going in and also how long he's paying into the policy. A lot of flexibility there. Guardian offers two different PUA fees. We'll explain those briefly when we get to those options. And then also they have a rider that can be attached to a policy, which allows you to participate in the S&P 500 index. In summary, it gives a little bit greater earning potential on a whole life insurance product. We'll go through that as well when we get to that piece. So let's begin by looking at one of the illustrations, which if you're interested in a whole life insurance policy, you will see one of these with the insurance company you select or companies you are considering. So a lot of stuff going on here, right? A little bit busy. As we look at this illustration, what he is interested in is what? The cash value, the bottom line. We're not going to go through a thorough analysis in this video. We've got a ton of videos where we do that. If we look at the funding of all of these columns, what do we identify here? These two columns are the same. Let's look at this one. Net after-tax outlay. This represents how much we are illustrating of his money going into the life insurance policy each year. First year, there's his lump sum, $125,000. And then what we have here is $100K per year through year 10. The column to the right, cumulative net AT, stands for after-tax outlay, tallies up your total payments. The total payments are valuable if you're looking at an illustration and trying to track exactly when your break-even point is. So for example, if we look at this guy, by the fourth year, what do we have here in total payments? $425,000. What do you have in net cash value? $428,000. That represents your break-even point when you have more money in cash value than what you have paid into the product. We did not break even in year 3 because our cash value was $319 and his total payments were $325. So it's really in between years 3 and 4 here, but by year 4, I'm positive. So break-even point, good. First year cash value, I paid in $125. I have $112 in cash value. That's over 85% of my initial payment, closer to 90%. All right, that's fantastic. This is great. However, what's it look like if I don't max fund it at $100,000 every single year for 10 years? This is getting over $1 million into the policy. So what we would look at then is an example like this, which is the exact same policy. Look at the first year. 125 goes in. There's your cash value, 112 and change. What this represents is what it looks like if you just pay $10,000 per year every single year forever in this particular illustration. When's your break-even point? Year 6, where I've paid in $175 and I have $176. I'm close in year 5, but I still have less in cash value than what I've paid into the product. So rather than flipping back and forth between different illustrations, let's take a look at a side-by-side here. So what we'll start with is what we just looked at, or something very similar to what we looked at. These are illustrations, but just exported to Excel. And what do we see here? $10,000 per year through year 10, with the exception of the first year, where we have that $125,000 lump sum. And what you'll notice about here, let's call this option A, option B, and option C, is that the first year is identical across the board because it's the same policy with the same initial payment. And then what this is meant to represent for the client is what it looks like if he pays just the minimum, the $10,000 per year. If he pays $50,000 per year, and then what it looks like if he pays $100,000 per year. Now, what I would add in here as I'm speaking with the client or the potential client at this point in time is these models display 10K, 50K, and 100K. In reality, what a lot of people do, especially those who select a Guardian as their company of choice, is have a policy set up like this, where they're only billed for 10K per year, and then they're throwing more money into PUAs at their discretion, and some years they hit 100. Some years they hit 40. Some years they don't add anything extra. Then perhaps they sell a piece of real estate and they throw in $300,000, making up for lost time. And at that point in time, I'd ask the question, when I say make up for lost time, I'm talking about mech space and catch-up payments. Are you familiar with that from your research thus far? And if they say no, then I'm going to provide an explanation on that because that's very valuable information to be aware of. A lot of people don't know it. And if I know that, okay, I can pay in $10K for a couple years and then make a $300,000 payment to make up for lost time compared to what I would have done over here, I can do that? Yes, you can do that. Oh, all right, I'm going to do that because I can really slug more cash into my policy. But that has to do with mech catch-up payments. And we've got a video toward the top right that goes through that. But here we've got funding a policy for 10 years with different numbers going in. And you will see a trend here. Look at the example to the left compared to the example to the right. And what's highlighted in yellow, what do you notice? The more we pay in, the earlier that break-even point is. meaning the faster the cash value growth is, we're accelerating that growth by adding more money into that PUA rider. Remember, the base premium here is $10,000. It's actually less than that. Next example is just a continuation. Here we've got the exact same policy, but what it looks like if after his lump sum, he never gets 100K in again. Let's say he pays in 50K, but he does that through year 20, which gets close to $1.1 million in the policy. Or what does it look like if he just pays $10,000 per year forever? Sometimes people do ask the question here, hey, what's going on with this? My death benefit drops quite a bit right here. And what I'll say is this is optional. What's going on here is we actually have term insurance attached to the policy. And the purpose of adding that term insurance is to raise the death benefit, which mainly raises that MEC limit on a life insurance policy. Do you remember what that term is and what it represents? Yes, I know it results in taxes and I don't want to MEC. Exactly. So the death benefit has a relationship to that MEC. And in short, by adding term insurance, we can raise that MEC limit to the needed number, which allows us to keep our premium low and pump money into PUAs to grow the cash value. However, if we don't use it, we don't want to keep it attached to the policy because it does come at an added cost, the term that is. So what we'll do is chop it off after year 7. And where year 7 comes from, because people sometimes ask, can I just do it in year 2? Like, I don't need it anymore if I'm only going to pay the minimum. The answer is no, because another name for the MEC limit is our 7-pay test, which represents the first 7 years of a life insurance policy. It's a rolling test every 7 years. There's a MEC test on a life insurance policy. Complicated IRS formula with life insurance to make sure that we can still access the cash value tax-free. Anyway, I said this video would be simple. We drop that term rider as early as we can to reduce the costs and maximize cash value if we do not intend on adding more money. If we want to add more money, I would actually keep that term rider on for a period of time, kind of like we see over here, where the death benefit is level. Once the death benefit's no longer at 3.4 million, that indicates that the term is no longer attached to the policy. And you can see it on the illustration as well. If he asked, well, can I see that? The answer is yes. You'll see it in the detailed illustration. Third to last column, face amount of 1-year term. That's the 100K example. And then here's the example we just looked at, where we manually reduced it or removed it after the 7th year. Let's look at those PUA fees. So this can be complex, but to simplify things is with his guardian policy, he has the option to choose either a 5% PUA fee or a 10% PUA fee. And the PUA rider is where he plans on putting as much money as he possibly can, because that's what maximizes the cash value. So if you had the choice of a 5% or a 10% PUA fee, which one would you choose? And again, you're putting as much money as you possibly can toward the PUA rider because that is what maximizes your cash value. Which one? Well, naturally, most would select the 5% PUA fee. The reason why is we think, well, the lower the PUA fee, the less of my money goes toward the insurance company in fees and more of it shows up in my cash value, which is true, particularly in the early years. However, you will see a difference as time passes based on the non-guarantees. So to summarize, a lower PUA fee with this product gives you more money up front, $112 in the first year, breaking even between years 3 and 4. Compared to a higher PUA fee, you get less upfront, about another $6,000 less. The break even is almost exactly year 5, so a delayed break even point, and less money than the 5% PUA fee for about the first 12 to 13 years, up until age 50. However, when we hit year 13, what do you notice? Well, now all of a sudden, the 10% PUA fee option has more. And to simplify things, let's do this. 10% on the right, 5% on the left. Now which one would you choose? A lot of people still might pick the 5%. However, some might be inclined to pick the 10%. However, I mentioned something earlier, because this is a choice that he has to make, or if you're considering a policy that you have to make. I can give my recommendation, what I do personally, but it is up to the policyholder here. Which one do you want to select? Do you want more cash value up front or long term? But it is so important to look at this for full disclosure. Here we've got the same product up, but the guaranteed values. Let me know what you notice or which one you would select when you compare and contrast these. So based on the non-guarantees, the 10% PUA fee that takes more money up front does potentially give you more long-term. However, based on the guarantees, you give more money up short-term and long-term with the higher PUA fee. So it really depends on how conservative you are and if you prefer stronger guarantees or stronger non-guarantees. Always up to the individual. This is something that we do have conversations around with individuals. I do have my preference, but it is something we need to select as we look at everything. So we've got the 5% and 10% PUA fee option. And then we've got this indexed rider demonstration that we will wrap things up with. So what we've got here is a rider that can be attached to a whole life insurance policy. And what it does is, if we look at a basic dividend paying whole life insurance product, we receive whatever the dividend rate is each year, provided a company pay a dividend, which the major mutuals have for over 160 years. However, what Guardian offers is an indexed rider, which allows our cash value to be linked to the S&P 500 index instead of receiving the basic dividend. And the fun part about this, or I should say the cool part about it, is that we can actually switch back and forth. Meaning 1 year, I can elect the dividend. The next year, I can elect the index strategy. I can go 50% one, 50% the other, and you can adjust it each year, which is really, really nice. In addition to that, it's a rider that can be attached and never used. So if I attach it, meaning I add it to my policy, have it at 0%, and never use it, there are no fees assessed. And it functions in the exact same manner it would if I never had it attached in the first place. If I do decide to use it, there is a fee that's assessed. Currently it's 2%. The maximum the company reserves the right to charge is 3%. These examples are based on the current charge of 2%, and the cash value figures, like any illustration, reflect the net cash value figures after that fee is assessed. And everything else that comes with a life insurance policy with respect to expenses is assessed. So if we look at the difference here, we did the same thing with the 5 and 10% PUA fee. Let's do it this way, actually. And there we are. So we see the 5% PUA fee rider has more money for the first 13 years. Then the 10% PUA fee rider overtakes it. If we looked at the guarantees, it would be the opposite. What some people also like to do in a case like this is see what does it look like if I just take the basic dividend and directly compare it with the indexed rider. Let's look at the 5% PUA fee for both of them, and how much more in cash value does exercising this rider potentially give me. And the indexed rider here, the assumptions, by the way, are based on the past 20 or maybe the past 25 years of market history. So that's just back testing the S&P 500. But here's the difference in potential value, which is cool. But again, it's all potential. I feel it's a nice rider to add to a policy. However, if you look at exercising it, and let's assume we have a number of down years where the index is not producing anything and I would have been better off with the dividend, what ends up happening there is it can actually hurt my cash value performance a little bit, because I had that additional fee that's being exercised while I turn the indexed rider on, and then I'm only receiving the guaranteed rate, because if I go 100% indexing, then I'm not getting any dividends. We've got a video up here that provides a full breakdown on the indexed rider, but it's a cool rider to add even if we never use it. What a lot of people express is they like the idea of attaching it, and then if another 2008 occurs and we have what looks like a long rebound for several years, that's a nice opportunity to turn it on and get potentially a little bit higher performance than what we would receive with a dividend. So it grants a little bit more earning potential. But my recommendation is to attach it if we live in a state that allows us to attach it. 3 states do not: New York, Virginia, and Pennsylvania, being the state I live in, but every other state does permit this rider, which is nice. But that's an overview of the Guardian policy. The nice thing for him regarding a recommendation is every option we saw there, or I should say every illustration, is the exact same policy. The only choice he really has to make in this particular case is that PUA rider fee. The indexed rider too, but he can attach it and leave it at 0. And if he leaves it at 0% forever, it's the exact same thing as if he never had it in the first place. So that doesn't matter in my opinion. This is the big choice because of the PUA fee, whichever one you select, you're locked into for life. Everything else we looked at regarding the dollar amounts and how long he wants to pay into the policy, that he can adjust as time passes, which is cool, right? You've got a lot of flexibility. You can really treat this more as a flexible savings asset, not so much a boring bill. So the purpose of this part 1, maximizing the husband's policy with Guardian for cash value. And then step 2 is using it, but we'll look at that in part 3 when we actually combine the policy values for the husband and the wife and look to use it for real estate. So I hope that this video was helpful. If you did enjoy it, please hit the like button, subscribe for more. If you have questions, please leave them below in the comments. And as always, I hope this helps. Thanks so much.
Hey guys, Steve Parisi here. If you enjoyed the content you just saw, please subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell for future videos. If you'd like more information or to see some custom policies for yourself, feel free to call or email our offices at the contact information below.